Today we begin our journey through Unfinished Tales. If you're new here, welcome to Heart of a Halfling, where we talk about Lord of the Rings and do some Lord of the Ring things. So let's get started. So, Unfinished Tales begins with the tale of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin. Now, just as a side note for this, going through Unfinished Tales will not be in the same way that we did the Silmarillion, where you have like a very thorough summary of the chapter, because most of these stories are just that, unfinished. They're incomplete. And if you want the actual tales or the canonical tales, go check out our journey through the Silmarillion. And if you want to know of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin, go check out this video. But as far as going through Unfinished Tales, these are drafts. They're unfinished. So really what we're going to be doing is doing a very brief summary of the chapters, but really talking about the differences, what's changed, some of the things that were added that aren't in the Silmarillion. There's lots of notes at the end of these sections that we'll kind of talk about some of them. And in particular, talking about this first section of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin, this story is one of Tolkien's first drafts, first tellings of the history of Middle-earth. And in fact, this story was initially titled Of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. However, the tale doesn't actually ever get anywhere close to the fall of Gondolin. And so Christopher Tolkien changed the title of this to Of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin. And in a lot of these stories, it's mentioned at the introduction that the names were actually changing throughout the tales, and Christopher Tolkien tried his best to make sure that the names were consistent with those in the Silmarillion. So just some things to kind of keep note of. But as far as this story of Tuor and his coming to Gondolin, a lot of the tale is very similar to the Silmarillion. The only difference is that there's some things that are added to the story, such as we learn more about the conversation that he has with Olmo. We learn more about Voronwë himself and what happened between him being told to leave Gondolin to go ask for aid from the Valar and to him actually coming to Tuor. We get a little bit more of that. We get a little bit more of the description of the gates of Gondolin, the 7 gates. But just to go back and start from the beginning, we do learn that Tuor was born of Rhiann. He's the son of Huor. Shortly after she gave birth to Tuor, she names him. She dies. It actually says that she goes to the Howdath in Ningen in the waste of Anfauglith, and it says that there she sort of mourns over Huor and dies. So we get a little more on that. And Tuor is raised by the Grey Elves and is particularly fostered by Anel, and he becomes kind of his foster father, and he's the one who tells Tuor about Turgon and the Hidden Kingdom. Something to note is that this chapter does not actually say Gondolin until the very, very end of this chapter. Right, and the last few sentences, it actually says Gondolin. Throughout this whole chapter, it's called the Hidden Kingdom, or the Hidden People, or the Hidden King, as far as Turgon goes. So here we see that Tuor is told of Turgon and of the Hidden Kingdom, and that we see this sort of desire to see Gondolin rise up in Tuor in the beginning of almost sort of setting this desire on Tuor's heart. So continuing on, a lot of it's the same to the Silmarillion again. The elves decide that it's time for them to leave. We have the Easterlings coming into Hithlum and taking over. They're wanting to leave. They quickly get captured. They're taken into captivity. Tuor is enslaved for 3 years, manages to escape, goes back to the caves of Andrath. And it's here that we learn how exactly he finds the gate of the Noldor, which is something that's not told in the Silmarillion. In the Silmarillion, it's just he finds the gate and he goes about his way. Here, he's in the caves of Andrath, and he doesn't really care anymore if anybody hears him. He's kind of, I don't really know if he's lost hope at this point, but it just says that he doesn't really care if anybody hears him sing or not. So he pulls out his harp and he begins to sing a song of the Eldar. And the water, the stream that was in this cave begins to boil and stir, and he begins to follow the water, and it's through this that he finds the tunnel and he begins to journey through the tunnel. And here we also learn about an item that is never spoken of ever again. And I think it's a shame because it sounds kind of cool. But it's the Feanorian lamps, which are lamps that have a little crystal in them that glow blue. And in fact, this was apparently cool enough to Tolkien that he did an illustration of Tuor and the Feanorian lamps in his climbing down the stairs through the tunnels and going through the gate of the Noldor. So that's kind of something cool that was left out of the Silmarillion. So he goes to the tunnel, he goes to the gate, and there are two elves that he sees walking by, and he calls out to them. They, again, thinking of the time, what's going on right now, there's Easterlings, slavery, all of this nonsense. They just see a man calling out to them, and they are quickly on the defense. And they begin to run to attack him. And Tuor is just sort of standing there. It doesn't really seem like he reacts too much to this. He just says, like, hey, I'm Tuor, the son of Hador, or the son of Huor, son of Galdor, of the people of Hador. And they're like, oh, okay then, well, if that's who you are. And they state themselves as Gelmer and Armanas. Now, these are two elves that are never mentioned in the Silmarillion. They're people of Finarfin. They come in contact with Tuor here, and later they'll come in contact with Turin, and they'll compare the two, which I think is interesting. So Gelmer and Armanas they introduce themselves to Tuor. They're kind of like, oh, you're not like other men. Like, they see that he's been raised by elves and he has like this different air about him. And so he asks them, do you know where I can find the gate of the Noldor? And they kind of give him this funny look like, seriously? And they look at him and they look behind him and they're like, you just passed through the gate of the Noldor, like, turn around, there it is, you just passed through it. And he's like, oh, okay, cool, can you show me the way to the hidden kingdom? And again, they give this funny look at him and they're like, no. First off, we don't know where it is, and second off, even if we did, there's no way we would tell a man where the hidden kingdom is. But you went to the gate of the Noldor, so you're kind of on the right path. And they kind of know at this point that, like, somebody is aiding him to even get this far. It does seem like Ulmo is probably guiding him. And so they kind of allude to that, like, if the Valar are on your side, you'll find the hidden kingdom, but only if the Valar are on your side and you're on the right path. And so they kind of move on and go about their business. From here, similar story. He finds Nevras, he finds Vinyamar. He has this huge love of the sea now. He stays here for a little while. He sees the swans, knows he needs to, move forward. The only thing that's added to this is really description of what the place looks like and what he's seeing. It's a lot of adjectives at this point. Everything is pretty well the same as the Silmarillion. We see that he gets the armor that Ulmo had told Turgon to leave behind. And now we get the conversation between him and Ulmo. And you get a little more in-depth conversation, but it's still the same concept. Ulmo is telling Turgon he needs to go to Gondolin. He needs to go and warn Turgon of the fall of Gondolin, and that he's going to give him a guide to get to the hidden kingdom. And here we have Veronwë. And so, again, all the same. Tuor gets the armor. Veronwë gets just a sword, just a small weapon. And they begin their journey to Gondolin. And it does say that Veronwë is a little surprised and shocked at first because he's been out at sea for a long time, and suddenly he's just washed up and pulled onto the shore and sees this man, and he begins to talk to Tuor, realizes that he is speaking as one who has spoken with the Valar, as one who has spoken with Ulmo, and goes, okay, I will guide you to Gondolin, because otherwise, again, there's no way that without the aid of a Valar, without the instruction of Valar, would anyone guide a man, no less than a stranger, to Gondolin. So Veronwë is definitely convinced that this is someone guided by Olmo. I'm going to take him to Gondolin. So we get a little bit more about Veronwë and his time and kind of what happens with him. We learn that Veronwë was sent by Turgon to go to Círdan with a group of other elves to help build ships and sail to the west to go and ask for aid of the Valar. Now, Veronwë states that while he was there is a land near the mouth of Círdan where Olmo is servant to Yavanna, where like this is where earth and life just illuminates, where it's just phenomenal. And that even if you have a love for the ocean, for the sea, this will change that you will now have a love for land, for trees and flowers. And it says that he spends his time naming new flowers and finding new leaves and was just completely under a spell. And that he had decided after a time to build a raft and to sail up Círdan more into this land, into the land of willows. But that once he sets sail, once he gets on his little raft, it says that a wind pulls him back to Círdan, to the mouth of Círdan, to Círdan, and then he breathes in the air of the sea and goes, oh yeah, I love the ocean. I totally forgot. And he gets there just in time for the last ship before it sails off. It's just been done being built and it's about to sail off, and he's now able to go, oh yeah, I've got to go do this. And he jumps onto the ship and sails off. And here we know that Osei comes up and he begins to destroy the ships, and it's only through the aid of Olmo that Veronwë is saved and brought onto shore to see Tuor. I just love this little added bit of Veronwë just forgetting that he loves the ocean, because it states that the reason why Turgon sent him was because on his mother's side they were people of ships, of seas, and so surely he would be a good sailor. And so it's just funny that he gets down there, gets sidetracked by all these flowers, and it's like 7 years have gone by and he's just lost in flowers and goes, oh yeah, I was supposed to go and do this. So we learn more about Veronwë there, and we continue on, and the journey's all very similar to the Silmarillion. We do get a little bit more of his weird interaction with Turin. So in the Silmarillion, it just states that they walk by and they see a man clad in black holding a black sword. And that's kind of it. Through context clues, you know this is Turin, but it's not stated explicitly in the Silmarillion. However, in Unfinished Tales, we do know that this is Turin. And in fact, while Veronwë and Tuor are walking, they're confused by the landscape, because it seems like winter has already come. The land is already dead. It's already destroyed. And we know that this is through the destruction of Glaurung. And when they meet Turin, or when they see Turin, he's off shouting, Ivrin, Falivrin, Gwendorin, Beleg, here once I was healed, but now never shall I drink the draught of peace again. And he cries, Falivrin, Findualas, until his voice died away in the woods. And so Nargothrond has fallen, and it says that this is Turin, son of Hurin, the Black Sword. And that's it. That's all we get. That is the only time that Tuor and Turin will ever cross paths, is when Tuor sees Turin yelling and crying out and realizing that Glaurung has destroyed everything, that he lied to him, that Findualas is dead, and that's it. That's all. That's the only crossing of these two, which I just think is interesting. So we do get more of that odd interaction than in the Silmarillion, where it's just they see a man clad in black with a black sword. Continuing on, again, all is pretty well the same. We get a little bit more description. They do have an encounter with orcs, and they're afraid that they're going to be caught because there's no way that Veronwë can continue on leading Tuor to Gondolin as long as they are being followed by orcs. And so now they have an issue of, oh, we got to lose the orcs, and they don't know how. Through the cloak that Olmo gave Tuor that hides him from enemies, Veronwë and Tuor are able to hide themselves for a time. It says that they are hiding and panting like tired foxes. And then Veronwë looks up and sees the eagles, and he says, this is our time. There's no way orcs are going to follow us while the eagles are out. They're going to keep their noses to the ground. So let's go. We need to go and get some space between us. And so they're able to go. And Veronwë does allude again that it is only through the Valar that we are getting this kind of luck and aid, and that it, the eagles must know that we're good because they're not attacking us like they would normally be attacking strangers around getting this close to Gondolin. And so they're able to go forward, and they now begin to enter into the first gate of the 7 gates to Gondolin. And Tuor is a little confused at first. He's like, why is nobody attacking us right now? And Veronwë goes, this is kind of weird. And it's through their whispering that now the elves are starting to come out. And we have the chief elf, chief guard, Emilkill, coming out and stopping them and getting onto Veronwë. Because he goes, because you were sent by Turgon, you have a right to return. But because you brought a stranger, you have lost this right. And so he's upset, and he's upset with Veronwë as well because they're friends. And he goes, why would you put me in this position? I have to kill you now. And Tuor now speaks up and states that he has come with Veronwë, son of Aranwë, because he was appointed to be his guide by the Lord of Waters. And so he begins to talk about how Olmo has sent him. And it's interesting because Emilkill looks at him and is kind of like, who are you? Where have you come from? Like, what is going on? Why are you talking this way, sort of deal? Tuor reveals that he is Tuor, son of Huor, and that this should mean something to Turgon, and that he should come, that he should be allowed to go and see Turgon. And in all of this, he's kind of convincing Emilkill that he needs to take Tuor to Turgon. And it states that when Tuor is talking, that Veronwë hears a change in Tuor's voice, that it doesn't quite sound like Tuor is talking. And Tuor, it states that he's listening to himself, like his mouth is moving, but it's not him talking. And this kind of, the words that he's speaking and how he's talking convinces Emilkill that he needs to bring Tuor to Turgon, that there's just something different going on here. And so Tuor and Veronwë are guided through the 7 gates. So now we get to know what the 7 gates are. We have the gates of wood, stone, iron, bronze, silver, gold, and steel. So now on the silver gate, there is a carving or an image of the white tree Telperion. And on the golden gate, there is a similar image to Laurelin, the tree of the sun. Interesting that the 7th gate is the gate of steel. And this, it's stated that this gate was crafted by Maglin, that with Maglin coming in and mining and gaining all this ore and things, that he's the one who crafted this last and final gate of steel. So now we have Veronwë and Tuor through all 7 gates. And when he gets to the last gate, he gets to the gate of steel. It's here that he finally removes his cloak and now reveals the armor that he's been wearing this whole time, the armor that Olmo told Turgon to leave behind. And what's interesting is that everybody recognizes that this is the armor that Turgon had left behind, that this was the sign from Olmo that he is a messenger from Olmo. And here, any doubt that Emilkill or any of the other elves had that Tuor was who he was saying he was, no longer was doubted anymore. Like, there's no more proof was needed. It says that now no further proof is needed, and even the name he claims as son of Tuor matters less than this clear truth that he comes from Olmo himself. And that's it. That's how this chapter ends. Why it was called The Fall of Gondolin, I don't know, because the story literally ends with him immediately entering into Gondolin. And it's not until this last page that Gondolin is even stated. So all of that I find very interesting. Now, as far as notes and things, kind of already discussed a lot of them. We have the blue shining lamps, that aren't mentioned in the Silmarillion, which again, I think is really weird because it seems like a really cool item, but it is something that you can find in pictures by JRR Tolkien, drawn or painted in 1979. Oh, I read that wrong. So the painting is not of Tuor, it's of Turin, and the face of Beleg. Yeah, it was the overturning and uncovering of Gwendor's lamp so that its light shone out that showed Turin the face of Beleg whom he had killed. And a note on the story of Gwendor, they are called Fëanorian lamps, of which the Noldor themselves did not know the secret, and they are described as crystals hung in a fine chain net, the crystals being ever shining with an inner blue radiance. So there you go. I had that backwards. I thought it was Tuor, but it's actually Turin. So it's kind of cool. You can see the blue Fëanorian lamps. So another note, if you want to show your friends how nerdy you are and that you know a little Elvish, there is a point where Gelmir and Armanos are leaving Tuor and they're going their own way, and they state Anar Kaluva Tielyana, which means the sun shall shine upon your path. So there you go. If you want to be a little nerd. Anar Kaluva Tielyana, which I think also sounds very pretty. So yeah, most of the notes I kind of told you along the way as we were reading. There are a couple of notes on the language, like the one that I just stated. A little bit when they encounter the orcs. Some of what he says. Tuor mutters, Girth an Glamhath. And in the notes it says death to the Glamhath. And that this name, though it does not occur in the Silmarillion or in the Lord of the Rings, was a general term in the Sindarin language for orcs. The meaning is din horde, host of tumult. You can also kind of see it in Gandalf's sword Glamdring and Tol in Godharth, the Isle of, or the host of werewolves. So lots of little notes like that, just kind of on the language and some behind what the words mean. But for the most part, I kind of told you some of the bigger notes as we read through it. And again, a lot of this is very similar already to the Silmarillion, which isn't a surprise. It's the same story. So that's kind of it for this first section. After this, we are going to spend a lot of time on the children of Hurin. There is a lot of tales, a lot of notes, and we're going to start going through all of that next week. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed doing a little something different. I haven't seen a lot of people go through Unfinished Tales. There's a reason for it. It's kind of a clunky video concept. But anyways, I still hope you guys enjoyed this. And of course, I hope your homes are filled with food and cheer. Bye!